22nd. So be prepared. Because actually, Kate, John, who do you want to do a shout out to?
My beloved wife and book creation partner, Carol Bales.
Kara Bells. Here we go. Hey guys, another awesome show today. We've got on an amazing person who is an author. He's a CEO. He's a entrepreneur. He is a creative in all sorts of things digital. Let's bring in Mr. John Adcox. Hey, John.
Hey, Michael.
I am so excited to talk to you. I'm excited to talk to everybody, but today
Back
we're
at you,
talking
man.
about stuff, two of my passions, art and computers and science and things like that. So let's start with the things that people will know you for very soon, which is going to be the fact that you are a published author, and you've got your latest book. Hold it up there so we can actually see it. And I know I do that whole like, is it this way or that thing too? Raven Wakes the World. Um, so tell us just a tiny little bit about it. You know what I'm going to do because we can. Let me throw it up here so people can actually see it. Bam! Raven Wakes the
There you
World. How
go.
about that? I love it. Tell us about Raven Wakes the World. What's up with Raven?
Raven is a Christmas story, which is just a thing that we all like to talk about right before Halloween. Um, I guess it's maybe sort of Christmas adjacent.
Uh huh.
So it's not the traditional Hallmark sort of Christmas story. It's a story about heartbreak. Katie Mason, the lead character, is an artist who is recovering from a battered ending of a broken relationship. So she's come all the way to Alaska to heal and to make art, but she hasn't been able to do either one of them until the mysterious stranger enters her life, and she finds herself caught up in an Inuit myth or a wonder tale that's come to life around her.
That has got to be amazing. Um, so she's living inside the tale, the mythology in the story.
Mythology has sort of enveloped her. I think
Oh,
stories have the power to heal, and there are times when other people's stories can heal us in ways that our more familiar ones don't. That's what Katie learns anyway.
excellent, excellent. And so, back doing my looking and understanding what Raven Wakes the World is about, I actually found your an old cover.
That's the current
Um,
cover.
is this the current one?
That's
Okay.
the one. That's the whole jacket, that the way it folds around.
Ah, okay.
So you've got the spine. So if it folded around, the quotes on the left are what's on the back cover, and then the bio with my picture with my lovely wife would be on the back flap.
Ah, gotcha. Okay. And so your lovely wife, and that's what we're going to call her, your lovely wife,
Her name is
has it,
Carol Bales.
Carol, your lovely wife,
Mhm.
and has done all the artwork. Is that right?
She designed the cover and did all these illustrations for the inside
Really?
that
So
I'm just thrilled with.
some stuff like this.
Not that I'm biased, but I absolutely love it. That is
Uh,
an illustration that comes when Katie is hearing the tale of how Raven brought light to the world, which
ah,
has
well,
strange parallels to the Christmas story.
I understand. Or maybe I don't, but I will when I read the book. And then what about this one?
That is sort of an icon. That is the it bookends. It appears at the beginning and the end of the story.
Okay.
So it's sort of
So
the
she's done
logo.
this kind of artwork, but she's also done, and this is what I love. This just little details that are in the book, like the initial drop cap when you start a chapter, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, she did custom drop caps for every page, or sorry, every chapter. Every page would be a lot of drop
That
caps.
would be a lot of drops. Yeah.
Every chapter, and if you look at them carefully, there's a subtle little story that's happening in the drop caps that sort of matches what's going on in Katie's soul as the story progresses.
Ah,
Carol captured that beautifully.
I love that. So when we read the actual chapter and we look at this drop cap, we'll be able to come back and say, "Oh, now I understand what's happening with Katie because of this. This is what this drop cap means."
I think so. Yeah, it's a great
Excellent.
idea. I've never seen it done before.
I have not either, and I just love the fact one, it took me forever to learn how to even make a drop cap in Microsoft Word. So doing this something like this would be beyond me, and I love that you
I
did
hear you, my friend.
this. I love that you did just this thing here. Well, so we're gonna get people to get go out and they need to actually take a look at this at the book um, here, and we already have fans by the way, just so you know. Marianne says Raven Wakes the World is an amazing book. Marianne has read it already, and so we'll have to have her on at some point and say, hey, I love this part of the book.
Well, spoiler
Um,
alert, Marianne is actually one of my oldest and dearest friends.
Oldest, like she's 90.
And, oldest in that I've known her the longest.
I've actually known Marianne for a long time too, so that means we have a connection there.
Yeah, I've known her since high school. So I beat you by 4 years,
You
I
beat
guess.
me by, yeah, by 4 years, at least 4 years,
Mhm.
something like that. That's awesome. So there's something else that we want to talk about, and I'm going to bring this up. First of all, I want to know the difference between these two guys right here.
Well, it's easy. The one on my left, I hope it's the left for everybody,
Is this the bearded guy?
is wearing a beard
Uh-huh.
and also a really amazing Victorian greatcoat with the high collar that
Yes.
my wife made for me.
Really?
Yeah, she invented the pattern and everything, and I look really awesome in it.
You do.
And the guy on the right is the one whose picture is on the corporate webpage
Uh-huh.
and has no beard.
Well, see, the thing about that I love about this, and I think that's what I really like about you, even though we haven't known that each other that long yet,
We bonded
is
with
that
that.
we're gonna keep in touch. But I love the fact that you do stuff like this.
All right.
Is that the original Batmobile?
I do not know. I think it's a reproduction. Now you can actually buy a reproduction of the Batmobile. And I
Uh,
know that because there's one actually here in Atlanta that you see on the road every now and then.
and like somebody's driving it around and like
Just so. And
Batmobiling
I'm so
around. Do they wear
jealous.
the cape and everything too?
Um, to parades and special events and stuff, as I understand it.
Excellent.
Unfortunately,
Excellent.
it's not me yet. But
Yet.
someday.
Well, there's something else that I want to talk about, and it's not the fact that you are just an author, because you are an author, but you are somebody who understands technology. And your other company, Gramarye, you had me at hello, or you had me when the dragon flew across the screen. Um, is an amazing thing. And I want to bring it up because people that watch this show, a lot of them are artists in some form or another, whether they're, painters or musicians or, you know, theater or, they make movies, whatever it is. And Gramarye will probably speak to them. So, can you tell us a little bit about Gramarye? And all of a sudden, all you guys that want to produce something huge, listen to the story.
Sure. Gramarye is the next generation book publisher, movie studio, and game developer of the future. We have a methodology for disrupting the Hollywood studio model. And we are led by a team of absolute industry rock star veterans.
Hmm.
Lou Aronica, our publishing partner, also my editor, acquired six consecutive Hugo and Nebula Award winners. I'm not sure that six is the right number. There was
Hmm.
like five of one and seven of one, and six were consecutive.
Right?
But the point is, he acquired lots of major award winning books. And also, the nerd in me likes this. He was Ray Bradbury's editor. Ray Bradbury is one of my friends and mentors and heroes. And he
Back
also
up.
launched the Star Wars.
You
Oh, sorry,
know Ray Bradbury?
I knew.
New, but no, Ray
He bought
Bradbury.
me my first ever Guinness.
Oh my gosh. Martian Chronicles is, by the way, one of my favorite books ever,
Excellent.
ever. So I'll continue with
Anyway,
Grammar.
yeah.
Yeah.
Lou was Ray's editor when he moved to a new publisher, and with Lou, Ray did his first ever author tour, and in
Ah,
fact came to Atlanta.
okay.
There's a whole story around that, but it's a
Yeah.
long one and it's not mine. Anyway,
Well,
it's a rock star team. Alice Newhouser is our president. She's the one who's actually run Hollywood studios and production companies before. And she's most famous for being the one who did all the pre and post theatrical financing for some of the largest non studio movies ever, like Terminator 2. And her
nice.
connection to Terminator 2 is funny because our chief technology officer, Ertisa Barlas, was DARPA's lead investigator into artificial intelligence and self awareness.
Mm-hmm.
So having the two of them together, what could go wrong?
Nothing. I
Yeah,
mean,
there you go.
nothing but Terminator, and
Our creative director won the first ever primetime Emmy Award for interactive television. Anyway, it's a rock star team.
that is a time. So explain Grammary. Like, why is Grammary different, and how's it disrupting? Because this is amazing to me.
Well, there's really three things. The first one is how content is discovered and developed, because we mitigate the risk of original content that has the potential to become a blockbuster cross media franchise. That's not a sequel or a remake. It's
Okay.
an original story. Um, we incubate, develop it, and prove there's an audience for it before we shoot the first frame of film. Now, if you were starting a studio in the old-fashioned way, you'd start with about a 30 to $50 million development fund
Mm-hmm.
that you spend every year just out there trying to develop content. And the story is Hollywood spends a minimum of about $3 million just to say no,
Yes.
and it's been anywhere from $3 to $20 million on movies they don't actually make. This is kind of going out on a limb, but we believe that we can not make a movie for less than that.
Okay. Okay.
So we have a content incubation process that starts with unpublished book manuscripts that meets a whole long list of criteria.
Okay.
When we
So
find those books,
go
we'll
ahead and
spend a
keep going.
full year developing that manuscript, just like publishers used to do back in the olden days. And then we publish them both as a regular hardcover book, much like this one.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
That
I got that. I want to use that one as part of our story.
Yeah, it's not actually a Gramarye book. Um, we publish them both as regular hardcovers and what we call ebook 2.0. And
Okay.
these are sold for the tablets and smartphones of the world and are layered with interactivity and magic.
Okay.
It's meant
Explain
to make
that.
the book feel like it comes alive in your hands, like a book from the library at Hogwarts.
Okay.
I mean, the first time I read a book on my iPad, I thought this should be cooler. So we can make a much more magical and immersive reading experience. There's story relevant games, there's illustrations that sort of start moving and come to life, sort of surprises and special effects that are timed to your reading speed, forums so you can interact with other readers.
Okay. So if I'm understanding this right, if someone's got a new book,
Hmm.
maybe, about some kind of raven or something, you actually could take this book, turn it into an ebook format,
Hmm.
put it on something like I will call it an iPad, and then as you're reading the book, the things in the book can be illustrated and add to the
Right,
story. So
right,
what you're doing there is before you even think about turning it into a screenplay or anything, you're building an audience of people who are already interacting with it.
right. And all those layers of interactivity allow us to mine a wealth of data about a specific story. Now we're not looking for data about you, Michael.
Hmm.
We're looking for data about the story and how people react.
Like what kind of data?
One, is there an audience for it? We're looking for the type of stories that inspire community. We went to
Hmm.
the Harry Potter pub crawls as part of our research, and we've got Dragon Con here, Comic Con on the West Coast.
Yep.
The communities form around stories, and when they do, they're worth billions. But Hollywood neglects those communities; they don't listen to them. So we built around sort of like Moneyball. Moneyball is not just about data; it's about identifying the underappreciated assets. So we found the writers are underappreciated and the fan community is underappreciated.
Okay.
So we empower the writer and we empower the fan community. If you go online, look at the forums, the thing that people are always complaining about is, why
Mm,
don't they listen
okay.
to us? And we thought, that's a pretty good idea. Let's do that.
Okay.
So that
So
gives
you
us a
so
distinction.
so you listen to the people. How do you mine this data? In other words, like you did the Harry Potter pub crawl. But
Yeah.
let's say you've got a new book. So all these people, authors who might be watching this, and they go like, what does my book need to do to become an ebook two format? And is it viable? Does John even want to talk to me? What are the steps? What happens?
Well, that's a lot of questions in one.
It is.
As for the data, what we're looking for is one, did people buy it?
Mm-hmm.
Two, did people share it? There's mechanisms built in the book where you can share with your friends on social media or email or what have you. Two, there's forums built in. People go online to Reddit or what have you to talk to other fans. Because there's something about talking about a story that says you're like me. We have
Mm-hmm.
something in common. That's a connection. And it means a lot to people. I mean, this isn't superficial. We talked to people who said they met their best friends that lived in other countries. One person actually met their spouse who lived in, I think, Sweden. But they united over a shared love of a story.
I think
Um,
I think that's amazing. I mean,
so
um,
we're looking for that kind of passion.
okay.
There's the forums, there's the shares, there's the games. The decision you make in the games tells us about your favorite characters, and it tells us if we're going to adapt this story in a way that's going to resonate with you. These are the parts that are most important
Mhm.
that we need to be sure we capture.
You
And
know,
then we produce
one
the
of
movies
the
ourselves.
one
Oh,
of
go
the things that I'm letting my head and imagination go wild. One of the guests we've had on here before was Phineas Goo, who invented Gooey Coop, and he's got an entire fan base of people that play D&D, but it's around these stories that he has developed and characters and mythologies. And I was going like, that would be an
That's something else
amazing
we do.
thing.
Yeah, is bringing the role playing element for these stories.
Okay,
Bring in the films, the fan fiction, the fan art, have a place for that to live. Um,
okay.
really just embrace the way the fans want to express themselves, give them a fertile ground, a playground, and let them go wild and let them tell us what to do next.
So
So then
then,
we can make the movie
what's next
ourselves.
after that? Then, if you do find a pool of people that are in this community and they're telling the story and the fans are interacting and everyone's like, "Oh my God, I love this." What next?
Well, then we'll make an adaptation, maybe film, maybe long form television, whatever the story I think will tell us the best way to make it. And then we use a perfect storm of new technology, building our own production studios that are all smart stages, and lower cost of business, lack of legacy overhead, and tax credits, all of which combine to let us produce for less than half the cost of Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, we'll control global distribution, both to streaming as well as brick and mortar theaters, which will come back someday.
Gotcha. And it's not just the lower production cost because you're going to produce the movie that's at the same quality,
Oh,
but
yeah,
you got it at less cost, and now you can actually make more money on the front end because of the lower production cost, right?
right. And, you know, like I said, if you were developing a property in Hollywood, you spend $3 million
Hmm.
minimum by the time you option that script, put a producer on it, do a budget, some attachments, and then you realize, yeah, this just isn't viable. That 3 million is just gone.
Right.
We do these books, and they'll generate revenue. So rather than having a sunk cost, we actually produce revenue,
Right.
which makes our investors very happy, and also gives us this wealth of firsthand, direct observational data. It's not survey bias. It's not secondhand. It's not actors' track records. It's direct, firsthand observational data, which
Right.
is the most reliable.
Exactly. So you pretty much you can't say 100%, yeah, we've got a hit here because you still have to actually write the actual movie and produce it and get the
Mhm.
actors and do all that stuff. But you've got a good head start
What we do
because
know is
it's
we've
something
got a
people
built-in
like already.
audience. I mean, the reason people turn to sequels and remakes so much, despite the fact that literally every executive we interviewed agreed with the analysts who say that cycle's played out and is presenting literally existential risk to the industry.
Hmm.
Everybody agrees with that, but they're still turning to sequels and remakes because they're perceived as safer because they've got that built-in audience.
Yes.
There's a Titanic remake going through the pipelines now.
Really?
Um, we think maybe there's room for a couple of original stories in there.
I'm thinking, yeah.
Yeah.
I can't imagine the remake.
And
But
also, I mean, to be perfectly blunt, we can also take chances on stories that would be considered riskier. Um,
mhm.
Things from minority or unknown authors whose communities are out there and passionate, but they're not built in. They don't know how to reach them. We've already reached that audience. We've already
Gotcha.
proven the viability of that franchise, and we can move forward with a great deal of confidence.
There's another thing that I saw on the Gramarye website that intrigued me also, and we may bring that back for another episode two of this. But you have a unique way of using the blockchain and financing the movies. Just talk about that real briefly.
Sure. Um, One of the new ways that people are financing companies is through blockchain security tokens.
Explain what that is, because most people are going like, "What was that?"
Yeah, and not surprising. It's a new type of security, like a round of stock. Now we took it a different way. We did a literal issue of stock. It's preferred stock that in turn entitles the investor to a 15% dividend and should be liquid. After they hold them for a year because they're Reg D, Reg S, which is SEC terminology. That means
Okay.
fancy stock. Um, that's regulated.
Hmm.
So it's completely SEC compliant, both domestically and internationally. Um, but it entitles them to the dividend, and knock on wood, after a year, they should be able to trade them and start to see some upside as that like any other stock should increase in value.
So people, when I say people, I mean normal people who normally would not invest in a Hollywood movie can actually invest in the movies that you're going to produce because it's like buying
Well, they're
Bitcoin. Is that
investing in the
right?
entire studio.
In the studio.
Yeah, so it's everything we do. The movies we make, the books we publish, the games we make, the real estate, the distribution network, all of that.
So if someone buys a
Unfortunately, it's
in
only accredited investors now.
only
We had a
accredited
we
investors.
did the Invest Georgia exemption early on, but we couldn't have two different exemptions open at the same time, so we had to close that and then move to only accredited investors, which has
Okay,
done really, really well for us.
gotcha.
Knock on wood, we should be completely through with all the fundraising we'll do ever um, by the end of the year. I hope
Excellent.
sooner, but definitely by the end of the year.
Are you guys looking for new properties right now? And I mean, when I say properties, new books, authors right now?
Absolutely. We're only going to be doing four in the first year because we've
Hmm.
got a lot of technology to build and processes to invent. And we have three of the four. We have a strong candidate for the fourth one, but we don't have it yet. But after
Okay,
that, we'll probably do eight in the second year, but eventually we'll be doing 12 a year. And
excellent.
the world is our oyster. There's a lot of great stories out there. Now, literally, and this is not hyperbole or exaggeration, but every literary agent has about 50,000 manuscripts. We visited the office of one who had a whole conference room that was just full of unopened manuscripts, which is really hilarious because most of them come by email.
Wow, wow.
So, of all those, probably half of them suck. And of the ones that don't, 5,000, only about one or 200 will match all of our criteria points.
Okay,
So then we choose 12 out of those hundreds. And we've got, again, industry veterans with a lot of experience to do that.
that is excellent.
And then a team of mentors to work with that author. I mean, we're expecting the author to be an entrepreneur, to treat their story as a business, which means learning to collaborate. It means learning to protect the heart and integrity of that story without being overly precious about every detail.
Hmm.
And that's a skill that we can teach, especially the collaboration.
Excellent. That's your whole philosophy here is amazing. Here, Marianne, one of our friends, has a question here.
Hey, Maria,
Says, can you give us any kind of hint about the genres you're developing the first year?
I can. Primarily, we're looking at science fiction and fantasy. Those are the ones that have the big franchises. Now, the fourth one that we're looking at is more of a mystery thriller, which is something we had planned to move into later. But we're starting with the big world, big budget. A lot of them are fantasy that's set in a contemporary setting. The urban fantasy, the mythic fantasy.
I like that.
Um, a lot of them aren't, um, but that's where we're starting. And we're looking at new adult, so young adult. So think about ages 14 to the mid 30s,
Hmm.
but those also skew both older and younger.
Gotcha.
So that's most adults and most 14 and above into their 90s.
So 14 to 90, that's a range. I'm going to ask for Alphinius again because I don't know if he's on or not, but I'm just going to ask for the D&D out there, and Crypton has a whole world that he's done. Is that something that's interesting? Is because he's got a huge fan base.
That's a great world. I'd love to see actual stories in it that still have that sort of literary worth
Hmm.
to them. There's a lot of game novels in the olden days that really felt like they were game novels and product more than art.
Hmm.
But now you're starting to see that change, and a lot of people that started with game campaigns have really elevated it into something really special. So it's the
Absolutely.
really special we're looking for more than the game origin.
Right.
But the
You're
game
looking for
origin
its
means
own
that we
world.
can continue to adapt it into more media types that gives the audience more of what they're hungry for.
Very
So it
cool.
allows us to serve them in a way that's more meaningful to them.
We are going to have to continue this. I'll probably have to bring you on Friends of Friends so we can do it for a whole hour.
Awesome.
By the way, is Raven going to be one of the books you look at, or
No, sadly, it doesn't meet the criteria. One of the biggest things
okay?
we're looking for is found family.
What does
So
that
think
mean?
of the kids from Harry Potter or the crew of the Enterprise or the gang at Cheers.
Hmm.
They're people that aren't related by blood, but are really, really close. It's the sort of the ultimate wish fulfillment that my tribe is out there somewhere and I'll find them. And they'll recognize that I'm special, and we'll do things together.
Gotcha.
Um, but it's really, really powerful. The Big Chill is a great example of that. The Mary Tyler
Hmm.
Moore Show, MASH. Um, these people care for each other deeply in a way that's very much like family.
Gotcha. So Friends would be a good one. Seinfeld,
Exactly.
those kind of things. Okay.
Um,
Excellent.
Raven only has two characters, really. I mean, there's some minor characters, but
Right. But it
um,
doesn't meet that family criteria. Like that's just
yeah.
one of the things you're looking for.
And there's not really nobody's going to make action figures from Raven Wakes the World. It's a very personal, very internal story,
Hmm.
and I don't think it would express itself well for the for the movie type where everything is visual.
Gotcha. Well, for people that are intrigued by this, as I am, you've got your book, which is Raven Wakes the World, and they can just go to ravenwakestheworld.com to
Mm-hmm.
find out more of that, right?
There's sample chapters there, and you can have all your holiday shopping done in one stop.
I like that. And for people that want to find out more about Gramarye, they can go to gramaryemedia.com and find out more about what you're doing with your new cool technology. So, thanks. We're going to talk about this and do version episode 2 and expand on all this sometime. So,
I look
thanks a
forward
lot,
to
man.
that.
I really appreciate it. I love what you're doing.
Michael, thanks for the time. This was a blast.
Thank you. Bye bye. Bye, everybody.
All right, everybody. Thank you, Marianne.
And Marianne, thank you. You're awesome.